You're listening to Drinks and a Movie with your host, Rudy. Spoiler alert.
His whole life is making this one film.
You have 2 hours tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and be an extra in a film. You get your name on the credits, man, as a producer. And of course, there'll be a whole crowd of people here, so we got to make like a line where people can't go. Have a hell of a lot of assistant directors saying, hey, could you step back like 5 feet? I think my mom's gonna have to end up going out in the woods.
I have my shot thing to do.
Okay. All of the extras have just fell through, except for Mike Schenk right there.
We used to do a lot of partying together, but I don't party anymore.
Hey, Mike, make sure everyone has brown gloves.
Does everyone have brown gloves?
No, dude. I'm broke, man. I gotta get gas tomorrow. And dude's talking about making a feature film.
The name of the film is Coven.
Coven.
Coven. That's the proper pronunciation.
No. Coven sounds like oven, man, and that's just, it doesn't work. She wants to be in your film, Bill.
Oh my gosh.
You get your $3,000 back. It's the first line of the film, man. It's gotta be on the money.
It's all right.
Okay, I believe we can do this.
Shot 37 here where my head goes through the cover. Every time we got together, there was something that seemed to go wrong.
Oh, dude. I'm sorry I tried to put your head in this. Take 30. Cut. You gotta watch your teeth too, because they clack a little bit when they loosen up in the mouth. Within weeks, the film will be cut, finished for multiple sales. What do you think about that?
Multiple sales to who?
We get to see Americans and American dreams, and you won't walk away depressed after seeing this. This whole thing is turning into a theatrical mockery. Do you understand that, Mike?
No.
Well, you will. Would you buy this movie for $14.95?
Hell yeah, man.
If I can find 3,000 people like you across this country, man, I'm in business.
All right, Drinks and Movie Podcast. I'm back with co-host Matt.
With hopefully less barking dogs.
And today we're talking, I guess we'll call this the Thanksgiving episode. We're going to be talking 1999, right? 97, 98? American movie. To give you a quick little synopsis here for anyone who hasn't seen this. One, it is a must-see for anyone who's a filmmaker.
Oh, absolutely.
So, come on now. All right. This is a documentary about an inspiring filmmaker's attempts to finance his dream project by finally completing the low-budget horror film he abandoned years before. Yes, all set in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. For this, we're going to pair up, since we're in the Thanksgiving week here, some Wild Turkey. We're going to do Wild Turkey 101 12-year-old. Okay, so the 12-year version of your Wild Turkey 101. We've got regular 101 just to kind of get ourselves, acclimated and prepped, so we have a little comparison.
It was also what we started 3 podcasts ago with a as our taster, but
this was our warm up. So Wild Turkey 101, if you haven't given it a chance, you need to, because I think it's one of the great, for sure, like budget bourbons out there. It's slept on because I think a lot of people think like college shots and like all that ridiculous stuff, but if you really sip it, like it's a good bourbon. I think they're 6 to 8 years old or 6 to 9 year old.
when is that? I didn't realize it was aged that much. Wow.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I think it's on the back here. And they just got really good flavor. 101 is like a really good zone. Yeah, aged up for 6 to 8 years.
Wow.
And then now we've got this 12 years. So let's dig out. I'm really excited for this. I've had this bottle for a while, and the only time I had it was in a blind tasting with like all the other Wild Turkey bourbons I have. So this will be my first time doing it kind of for real, I guess.
On a completely random note, one of the first bourbons I ever bought myself, like when I had first tasted a bourbon, because of the activity we do, drum corps, that's where I found bourbon and whiskeys and stuff like that, and was Wild Turkey, the 101. And I didn't know, the reason I bought this bottle was because I could afford it.
Right.
Like, and I know that's not a good reason,
a cheap one.
but I didn't know anything else at the time. And I was like, oh dude, this is, I'm going to enjoy this.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
I think I'm getting some caramel, but it could be deceiving me. Oh yeah. I'm getting some, or not dark chocolate. I think it is caramel. Maybe just a little bit of like the sweet, like dark chocolate or something.
Like sweet vanilla and caramel. Like when you put your nose to it, don't even try doing it or doing one where put your nose to it, but don't breathe in through your nose, breathe in through your mouth. And you really get that strong vanilla caramel,
yeah.
dude.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that's like straight caramel candy with vanilla.
That's
right
amazing.
There, yeah.
Dude, now all of a sudden there's the vanilla there, yeah.
Yeah.
And most definitely the caramel.
Yeah, I think I'm getting more of
so
the
cool.
spice on the nose. Yeah, so I always
I've
like
not done this before.
I do both. I kind of
Yeah.
alternate with that.
Smart move, man.
Yeah, I definitely get the more like spice notes like when I
Yeah.
just sniff it regular, but
Agreed. when you open up the mouth.
yeah, when I inhale the mouth, I get that sweeter vanilla caramel. Definitely that wild turkey sweetness kind of smell I talk about. Yeah. All right, here we go. I'm gonna go in for the taste.
Wow. To me, this is a totally different experience than the 101. I'm not gonna lie, man.
Yeah,
And I don't know what the cost difference is between it, but dude,
a
this-
lot.
Okay, is it okay? Like this is hitting all parts of the
Yeah.
tongue with holy cow.
Yeah, really good texture, and it really lit up the tongue.
Absolutely. But not in that like, just spice up front. Like this is like,
Yeah.
I'm getting a full flavor throughout the whole thing. Definitely still feeling the caramel notes as
Yeah.
it goes down. It feels a bit darker, but man, in all the good ways.
Yeah, like your quintessential bourbon, like vanilla caramel
Yeah.
spice. Yeah, no, that was a good experience on the
Wow.
first sip in terms of like
Yeah.
the texture, getting those layers of like flavor, that typical wild turkey sweetness I kind of talk about. And it's very bold. You definitely get more of that complexity compared to the regular 101.
Yeah. The 101 hits the front of my tongue just a bit more, and I assume that's the heat or the spice of it. So this one it feels like it goes throughout the whole thing, and it stayed with me for a minute too.
That's good. I don't remember how much I got this for,
Dude, I like this. This is good.
but it's definitely significantly more. And so this is one of those kind of weird. It was like Japan only release or whatever, kind of like those Blantons that we tried,
right.
like where or duty free, whatever you call it. I don't know that. I don't completely understand all that, but I do know that I got this. Where did I get it? I think from Stearns or Corked in Redondo Beach, and they had like stacks of them, like cases of them.
Oh, wow.
So you can get them if you want to go. I forgot how much I got it for, but it's not $20. Like what?
Isn't that like 70 range? Because that's like knob 12 I find around.
Nah,
there.
it's more than that.
It's more than that,
Because
okay.
this is like way more allocated and all that than like your Knob
Got
Creek
it.
12.
Okay.
It was 3 digits for sure. I'll
Okay.
tell you that. And I got this a while ago. Like,
I
haven't had it yet.
I don't think, I mean, it doesn't, I wouldn't mind paying that much. It's like, it's that kind of flavor.
Yeah.
I do think, I do somewhat compared to other 12s I've tried. And have we done does Elijah Craig even have a 12? I can't remember. My brain's totally.
Yeah. Well, I think I think the regular Elijah Craig used to be age stated 12 years.
Got it. Okay. So I'm thinking of, I have Knob Creek 12 right now in my, and it's one of my favorite.
Yeah.
Like, for that, especially for that price point. But this is, dude, I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah. Re-imported by Allocated Imports. So yeah, they used to be like the out of country, but it's blocking the rest of this label. So I can't
That must be
read
some
it. This
sort of
special
economic
release,
thing.
something. Notes of vanilla, rich caramel, hint of long chocolate orange finish. Like it's all blocks. So I can't read it all, but
So when you say
I'll take
like,
a
so
12
can
here.
you find this then in a liquor store, or do you have to like go to like a duty free store or something in the airport?
well, so I think that used to be it, but now,
Got it. Okay.
Now, like I know you can get it. Like High Times, which I've been talking about a lot lately in Costa Mesa. They had one or had some. I didn't see it last time I went there, but maybe they still have them. And I know that Corked, Redondo Beach, and Stearns and Long Beach, like those liquor stores have them.
Got it,
like, and
okay.
I went and there's like cases, and
Okay,
cases,
okay.
like stacks of them. So as far as I know, that's the only spot to like get them. I haven't seen it in other stores, I don't think. And
Got a nice
comes in a
little
really
box.
nice box.
Yeah, I like the box.
Really
Nice
it's
purple.
Got a lot of text on the inside here. Go ahead and close your eyes. Smell the bourbon first, then let the flavors roll in your mouth. That's the real way to taste the true character of this 12-year-old Wild Turkey Kentucky bourbon.
Does Wild Turkey make an 18 or anything like that? Is there a step up from this?
No.
Because this one feels like, I wish I had a better word, but it feels pretty fancy. Like it feels like they've put a fair amount of work into getting this taste to this level.
Yeah, and from my understanding is it's the Wild Turkey 101 just aged. I mean,
Aged? Oh, man.
so they do like the
wild.
highest char, which is char number 4 for their barrels. They also barrel them at a lower entry proof. So I think they all go into the barrels at like 109 proof or whatever. And then they believe that 101 is like the sweet spot. So that's
Got
why
it,
it's
okay.
always like their shit is like
got it.
specific 101. But because some bourbons, their barrel entry proof will be a lot higher. I think it just has to be below 125 is the law. But my understanding is that when you put it in lower, it extracts better flavors because the high alcohol content is I forget, but there's
Some
a
sort
whole
of
thing
process,
to
yeah.
like the kind of more you get into the more science aspect of it. But yeah, this is really good. I mean, the other like Russell's Reserve 13 is the very popular and hard to get. And that one's barrel strength. I think mine's like 113 proof or something, but that's a higher aged Wild Turkey product. They did do a few years ago, one of their, because every year they do their Masters Keep release, which is their like high end expensive shit.
Yeah.
And they did a 17-year-old bottle and bond a few years back, but I never got to try that one.
I really do try not to consider the price when I'm tasting stuff. Like just go for what they're offering for the flavor. And I will say, I like that. This is really good, dude. My brain though is ticking in and like, okay, well, what can I get for this? You know, I'm comparing it to,
right.
And I don't want to do that. But at the same time, it's kind of tough not to, because if you want to try this stuff at some point, you do have to buy it.
Yeah. So. And I haven't seen it at any bars I've gone to.
Wow, okay.
So like, I never, like if I didn't have the bottle, I wouldn't get to try it.
I mean, I don't look too often. I rarely look for wild turkey. If I'm going to a bar or something, I usually have other interests. So I only notice, the 101. But this is damn tasty, dude.
I got to say, going back to regular 101, like I think it almost tastes better going back to it afterwards. It's really good. Regular 101 is really good.
Yeah, dude, holy shit.
It like literally got better.
Yeah.
It didn't get worse. It got better.
Well, and that's
very
the thing.
odd.
When I go back to 101, I'm like, can you do better than that for whatever the $20-$30, whatever the hell wild turkey?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if you can. Damn.
All right. Now I'm going to go back to hold on. Let me see if the 12 gets better now. That was really shocking to me.
Dude, no kidding.
I was expecting to feel really sad. Like, oh man, this is going to be weak now. But
that is so funny.
Yeah. I like them both a lot. I think the 12 is more refined. It loses some of those rougher edges that the regular 101 might have. But yeah, man, I don't know that it's wildly like insane. So, okay, hold on a second.
Yeah. I mean, the comparison is this 5 or 6 times better than the 101? And I guess that's the question you got to ask yourself, right?
Yeah, that's what and that's where, because it's like we all want to not worry about the price and all that. And there's a lot of people that talk about that very thing. Oh, well, don't worry about the price. But it's like, well, I have to. Like,
but we live in the real world. That's
I can't just. You can.
Yeah.
That's maybe you can. I guess I'm not going to tell you what you can or can't do. I'll talk about myself.
Sure.
I can't like tomorrow go and like I'm going to buy another one of these, and be like nonchalant about it. Whereas regular wild turkey 101 I can't. So that's where it comes into play for me, because it's like, okay, like you said, is it 6 times the price better? Also again, we can get Knob Creek 12.
Dude, that's the comparison,
this isn't a different. Maybe I'll do a video where I compare those two, because like Beam and Turkey are like my favorite distilleries. So that would be interesting. Like, okay, Knob Creek 12 versus Wild Turkey 12. I wonder where that would sit. This is right off the bat just way more mellow in my opinion, and more of those sweeter notes. I feel like the Knob Creek 12 is a little darker and maybe a little rougher. At least the last couple of times I've had it, it seems to have fallen from grace for me a little bit.
But I can still get it for $70 or $80 for the bottle, right? That's the
exactly. And you don't have to again, the only stores I know of right now are in Costa Mesa, Long Beach, or Redondo Beach. For us, that's a little far away.
Yeah.
That's over an hour away. So, whereas Total Wine is right over there.
Yeah. Although part of me does wish I lived in Santa Monica, but let's just not even go there. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. 101 got better. Well, we're not trying to drink too much, but I brought this Wild Turkey Kentucky Spirit. Funny enough. So from Stearns Spirit, this is the same store where I got the Wild Turkey 12. Yeah. So Wild Turkey Kentucky Spirit, and I've brought it on the show before. I think I brought one here before, but this is it's the single barrel version of Wild Turkey 101. So this is like a batch product. They barrels 6 to 8 years old, whatever. They blend them to meet that Wild Turkey 101 profile. But this is the single barrel version. So 101 proof, same thing. Theirs though is 10 years old. So that's why I brought it, because I'm like, all right, how will this stick up? And these are about like $69 typically. So around that Knob Creek 12 price, which even these, they can be kind of hit or miss.
Sure.
And it's another one of those like, okay, is the price jump worth it? Because at the end of the day, it's still Wild Turkey 101, but you're talking about like jumping from 20, 25 bucks to now $70. So
can you remind me a little bit too? Does Stearns get any input in what barrel they get, or is this?
Yeah, this is their pick.
That's their choice.
They went to the distillery.
Okay.
They tried a bunch of samples and they settled on barrel number 933.
Hey, there we go.
And they say that this one is actually 10 years old. So I brought it because this could be an interesting comparison.
Interesting.
So if you want a little sip,
give me a little taste.
Let me finish my 101. I'll let you pour yours.
I might not. Yeah, it's got to be a little taste, because, folks, this is our 3rd podcast we recorded. And if I start slurring my words, you know what's going on. And I'm also going to to play it fair, I'm going to let the the 12 open up a little bit as well. I want to try it when it's opened up a bit too. I think that's been a great comparison, like seeing what happens after you leave it out for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, maybe, let's talk about the movie a little bit and then we'll come back to
do it, man. That sounds great. American movie. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. When did you first see this movie?
Oh, man, probably like 10, 15 years ago. It had to have been around 2008. So quite more than 10 years ago.
I saw it in theaters.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And for whatever reason, this movie got a wide release. And as I was reading some of the history, it reminded me of, it was kind of, it was the darling at Sundance, which is not a surprise. You got a bunch of people in the same place who love cinema, and you've got perhaps the most optimistic filmmaker ever being captured in a documentary, a guy who is just going to make his film any way that he can, you know? And so it actually got a release. And I might not have ever heard of this film if it hadn't had the success it had at Sundance. And then it actually got released in theaters, and it had some of the best commercials for a person like me who was all at this time of my life, 1999, I was still in high school. I was a senior in high school, and I just was all about any type of film, foreign, independent, huge blockbusters, every type of film I could get my hands on, I was trying to find. And I was just, I was on the internet at the time, which not a lot of people were in the 90s and stuff. So this had a great marketing campaign. A lot of the commercials revolved around Mark Borchardt jamming that guy's head into the sink, he's trying. So it had I'm already laughing my ass off, and I wanted to see this film at all costs type of things. And I probably went to Lamley's or somewhere, probably in Pasadena at the time. I don't remember which theater, but I just remember this was like, oh my God, this guy's my dream. Like I want to be this guy who doesn't let anything get in the way of him making a film.
Yeah, it's so good, and it works on many levels. Like, it's funny, dude. It's hilarious. Funny. Like, there's moments and scenes in here that, like, I was talking to you earlier about how I was trying to explain it to my friend Chris Kelly, and I was like, I guess, like, imagine kind of like Trailer Park Boys, but they're not really petty criminals, but they're trying to, like, it's a documentary, and they're trying to make this movie, and they're, like, really hungry to do it. And then after I said that, when I watched the movie again, I was like, wow, it kind of is. Dude. Like, just... It's so hilarious. And there's stuff that they say that, like, man, you can't write a better comedy. It almost, and it's real. Like,
watching it 24 years later, it almost feels like this is fake. Yeah. Like, it's that good. That the situations and the characters and everything that's involved in this film, I would just assume that it's made up at this point, but
yeah, it could be a written mockumentary, and it probably wouldn't have been written as funny as this.
It wouldn't have been as good.
And a lot of that has to do with the editing too. Like, there's just really good editing choices. I always think about, there's a scene where I think it might be the Thanksgiving scene when Mike Shank, so Mark Borchardt is our main subject. He's the filmmaker, and his best friend is this guy named Mike Shank,
you couldn't write a better character.
And they grew up together, and he talks about doing a lot of drugs, and clearly, like, you can tell he's done a lot of drugs, and it's kind of it's done him in a little bit,
and he's suffering from addiction. You can just he's a guy who has a real
and he talks about it. And when he shows up, and Mark puts his arm around him, and he's smiling. He's like, oh yeah, I'm happy to be here. And he's like, yeah, what are you smiling about? And he's like, oh, I'm just happy, just I'm good. And Mark's like, oh yeah. And he doesn't let it go. And he's just like, what do you know that we don't? And then it does a hard cut to Mike being interviewed in the basement. And he's like, yeah, I just won $50 on a lotto ticket, but I don't want these guys to know, because then they're going to want to borrow money from me. Just like, that editing is so good. And the way Mark knows too, how he keeps pressing him, like, what are you so happy about? And he's just like, no, I'm good. We're having dinner. I'm just happy to be with my friends. Like, no.
So if you allow me just one moment.
Yeah.
In 1999, all I was thinking about is going to college for film school and getting into, I want to work in this industry. This just sounds like right up my alley. So this film is really inspirational in that sense, in that this guy wasn't going to let his real life problems get in the way of his dream, And watching this 24 years later, I haven't watched the film in 20 years. And so it's interesting.
Oh, really? I didn't realize
I haven't revisited it, but it was one of the first DVDs I ever bought. Like, I just freaking loved every aspect.
It's like a yearly watch for me.
I need to make it one. After this, I need to make it one, because it hits totally different right now than it did 20 years ago. I don't remember the real life situations as much as I do. Like they hit me hard this time. I'm like,
his debt, his kids,
his addiction problems, you know, he's starting to become an alcoholic, all these things that are like real life stuff. And yet he wants to continue pursuing his dream. And if anybody, like even the title, American Movie, if that doesn't just hit you, like if you can't relate to that, I mean, everyone can relate to that. Like there are things we all want in this world and life gets in the way of that. And those aspects of it were really hitting hard.
Dude, yeah.
As this time through. But as a kid, you know, and as a younger person, because I probably saw this movie, I guess I was 17 or 18, so right around that time, I was just like, dude, this guy he's doing it. He's doing it.
Yeah,
you know, I was so inspired by him doing it. And the child support, all these things didn't even like click in my brain, you know? And there is some aspect, like that's the thing I think about nowadays. I'm like, dude, I have a certain level of respect for this guy that despite all of these commitments he has in his life and these things he has to do, he's trying to make it work and he's trying to get his thing done.
And you get that from some of the interviews of the people that are around him where they're like, well, you know, we're supposed to be doing this, but now we're suddenly doing this coven thing. And you can tell that they're drawn to that aspect of him. Like, well, he's determined.
Oh, yes.
So, and it becomes kind of infectious where even though some of them might not be all about it, it's like, well, he's going for it. Even who's a Joan, the chick that he's like dating,
his partner.
She says it and there's moments where you're like, why is this woman like with this guy?
Why would he be with this dude, right?
Why is she with them? And one thing that stuck out to me more than ever when I watched this yesterday was when she says he does. Well, what does she say? Sorry, I might have to find the soundbite. 25%. He's already put in. Yeah, he's already put in.
Even if he only does 25% of what he says he's going to do, it'd still be more than
what anyone else would have done.
Lifetime.
Yeah, the fact that he's at least like going for it and trying when other people just would be all talk. It's like he's trying to make it happen.
I totally agree. And there is something, because there's even times now watching it as a 41-year-old where I'm like, he's kind of manipulating these people a little bit, but there must be something to it that these people want to follow him because about, you know, he's so driven. He cares so much about this. I've noticed that so many times in my own life where there are times where I may choose to work with somebody who is a little bit difficult, but I choose to follow them because they're so passionate and they have such a vision. I want to be a part of it.
Yeah, right.
You know, I totally relate. Like it's so real world, man. And that part even almost makes me emotional when I'm thinking about it because I know this is going to be a wild comparison, but just go with me. Steve Jobs. So many people describe Steve Jobs as an asshole and really tough to work with and all these type of things. Yet they all wanted to be a part of what he was creating.
Right.
And I know this is a microcosm of that. It's a small example of that, but there has to be a reason these people choose to follow him. His own family, his brother, not a big fan of him, and yet still decides to support him and help him and do these things and be there for him for certain aspects because you got to admire that kind of passion in somebody, you know? It's just, I love those aspects of this film. It's literally an inspiring thing.
Yeah. And a lot of it doesn't work out. Like I always think of that shot when he's in the basement and he's like calling his friend, like, hey, do you have time to be an extra in my film? And yeah, like for real though, like I live down the street, come. And when he has to get his mom to go out there, he's like, shit, man, like I'm going to have to tell my mom to go out. And she just, I got all these groceries to do. He's like, all the extras fell through. I just need you for like 30 minutes. Dude. And again, being relentless, and she has to go out there and do it with them. And just
badgers his mom and you don't have to do wear like the stuff you need to do today. Just go out and shoot me.
You got to wear this like black cloak and go out in the snow
and look menacing.
Yeah, look menacing. Fuck it, so good. I'll just go wide on you. But yeah, I mean, a lot of those moments, and yeah, I think some of that stuff sticks out to me more than before. I forgot what I was going to say. There was more.
I really relate to, you know, there's a moment where he's talking about all of his bills and owing all this money. For most of my life, I've been a really bad money manager. It's a good thing I'm married to somebody who, you know, actually decides to save and shit like that. But despite owing all this money to his dad and his credit card and all these different things, he's going to pursue his passion. And I don't know if that's it must be an American thing, but it's the title of the movie.
Yeah.
Like they just, we respect that here in this country. And that's one of those things that I think, for all of the shit that our country does so terribly and so awfully as people, we were just talking about it in a previous podcast. That's one of the things you got to like kind of admire and respect and kind of feels American, that despite all of the awful shit that's happening in your life, you're pursuing your passion.
Yeah.
And I really relate to that a lot.
I do like that. During the opening credits when he's talking about all the debts.
Dude.
Good thing it's only $80. I mean, what are they going to take? My Night of Living Dead book?
I owe the IRS this money. I owe the state this money. I mean, everyone.
And just getting to the last thing, he's like, oh, kick ass. Your MasterCard has arrived. I love that. So good.
This came out in such an interesting time because the 90s, man, the more I think back on the 90s, what an interesting time for cinema and film, because we had seen Kevin Smith dropped 27 grand. We had seen
Robert Rodriguez, Richard Linklater,
all these people drop their own money to get these things made. Yeah. So, and you, by the way, you didn't have cinema, you didn't have digital. So you had to do it in film. You had to spend money. If you wanted to make a film yourself, you had to spend money. There was no way around it. Right now, what a time we live in where literally you can get a phone to look pretty freaking good right now, So you can, there's the barrier to entry is so much less. You had to sacrifice something, and he was willing to do it. And it didn't even seem that crazy at the time because you had seen these examples of it working,
Yeah.
And this is one of those examples where you don't know if it's going to work or not.
Yeah. Man, one thing that always gets me is when he, there's a scene where he's driving through the rich neighborhood and he's talking about how he just goes there and likes to look at the houses and like thinking about the goal, right?
Yeah.
And I remember, and then just the funny stuff where he's talking about it and he's like so serious and it's like a dramatic moment. And then he's like, but mine's not going to be this obnoxious. Right, yeah. It's going to be more flat. But dude, I think about shit like that. Like I used to do that when I was younger I was starting to drive. I used to do that shit, like drive around. And when I was really now I'm in a whole crisis of like, I don't know that this is going to work out for me. Like what am I going to do?
So that's interesting. So does the film hit differently then? Like, cause you're in your current state? Like it most definitely hits Meek differently.
Yeah, it does get me a little harder. Cause I think a lot of those points, I mean, I've been dealing with this for a while. So I think a lot of those points have already hit me kind of hard. So I don't think it's that different right now, but yeah. I mean,
it makes you ask your questions of yourself, right?
Yeah. But I remember, I used to do that stuff and then I stopped doing it because it just makes me mad now. I just get angry.
Totally.
And one of the biggest, and I've had this thought in myself too, like, this is probably like 2/3 of the way into the movie. It's closer to the end. And he works at this cemetery. Yeah. And he talks about, I forgot what led into this, but he's like, you know what? The other day I got called in for my boss or whatever. And he said, yo, you got to go to the restroom and like clean up. And he's like, so I go to the stall and, somebody didn't shit in the toilet. They shat on the toilet, on the walls. And he's like, and I just stood there and I'm looking at all this shit. And it's like so funny.
It's hilarious.
The way it's written, but it's also at the same time like really sad. Because he's like, and I had to just sit there and I thought to myself, I'm 30 years old and in about 10 seconds, I'm going to be cleaning someone else's shit. And he says, it was a really profound moment for me. And I feel that way very much in like a lot of jobs I had and stuff that I do. And I get into some nonsense and I'm like, what am I doing? Dude. I'm here cleaning blood off the fucking wall in his bathroom right now because someone smashed a pint over someone's head. Like, I should be making movies. Like, this is stupid. What am I working for? So, like, moments like that, and that always, like, hit me. Like, I always get, like, sad at that because I get that. I totally get that. Right? And what I thought about when I was watching that now is, like, oh, my God, I'm 34 now, dude. Like, like I'm older now than this guy was at this time.
At the same time, Rudy, I have that. I ask it's not often, but there are times, even in my day job. Okay, I'm teaching high school kids. Like, what am I doing with my life? There are times where I'm there, Friday afternoon, it's 5:00. I've been there an hour and a half after the bell rings. What am I, I feel this, even if you have a job that pays enough to keep the roof over your head. Yeah. I think that's the thing that we can all relate to in this film is like, you ask yourself, what the fuck am I doing in my life? Right. Regardless of what you're in. At the same time, here's the thing, man, where it's like, this is where I know I have a little different perspective. I'm going to interrupt just for real quick. This single barrel, I actually like this. It kind of bridges the gap between.
It does.
Okay, so
It's more bold.
It's more bold, but it's not quite the smoothness of the 12. Like it doesn't have but I can taste the hints of the 8. I mean, the 101 and the 12 in here.
All right, let me go back to 12 now.
Yeah. But what I was going to say is that at the same time as I get older, I'm not always convinced that my job should be my passion in life. Like this, I've had this recent thought, and I know we're sidetracking from the film, and I know we're getting a little personal. Like one of the things that's great about not being like your day job maybe isn't your total passion is I don't mind telling my day job to go fuck themselves because like it's not 100. It's not my entire life, you know? And so like, that's one of those things where like I seeing this film right now, dude, it's bringing up all sorts of feelings. And that's probably why I enjoyed it. So even like, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this rewatch of the film. It's just hit me in all the feels.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like first of all, there's no one right path. If there's one thing we learn, you know, life is going to take you in all different directions. And this film was definitely a demonstration of that. At the same time, man, it's like, dude, kind of makes me want to make wants me to get into something creative again, and make definitely. A film, and do all these things, all the feels.
It's always super inspiring. Because it does get me in a point of like, I need to go out and make something. Like I have the camera now, like let's roll.
I got all this gear.
Yeah, like let's do it. So go to the 12 year now.
Okay, go to the 12.
I want to hear your thoughts before I share mine. So this is after the Stearns pick of Kentucky
interesting.
Spirit.
Ooh, I'm getting a little more of it's a little smokier or spicier.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Okay.
I'm getting a bit more of the spice after the single barrel.
So for me, right off the bat, as soon as it touched my tongue, the 12, I was like, all right, this is way more mellow compared to the Kentucky Spirit.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And doesn't have that same boldness, but more like sweeter fruit flavors came out.
I agree with that. Totally agree with that.
It was almost like eating a pack of you ever have fruit stripes, a little zebra gum? Like this shit's great. The flavor goes away in like 2 seconds.
It doesn't last.
It was like a muted version of those kind of like gum fruit flavor. And I've referred to some of the Wild Turkey sweetness as like a bubble gum before in the past, but this was like a fruit gum variety like of sweetness. So that was actually really, really nice. It's so interesting how having different whiskeys side by side can like change the way another one and influence it. But
I'm trying not to consider the cost again, but I mean, it's almost impossible. I would tend a little bit more towards the single barrel if I'm going to spend more money.
Yeah. So this one,
it's tasty.
I didn't like initially as much as I was hoping originally when I first got it. Because I have a couple different Kentucky Spirits and I was like, oh, they got a 10-year one. I got to try that.
Yeah.
And every time I've had it, and I've had it with Chris too, and I've done it in blinds, I'm like, okay, it's fine. But right now, it might be my favorite of these three.
Yeah, I would agree. It is for me, for sure.
So Camp Nelson B. Yeah, so anyone who's interested, the one we were drinking again is from Stearns Spirits.
Do you think they even, can you still get it?
You might. The last time I saw, they were still promoting it. Like whenever I see them on Instagram, they still had a bunch of these. Like I ordered this as soon as they dropped it because I thought it was going to sell out. It didn't. But it's a 10-year-old Kentucky Spirit from Stearns Spirit. So they're in Long Beach and Redondo Beach, otherwise known as Corked. But yeah, it's a good one. It's right in the zone right now for sure.
Absolutely hitting at the right spot.
Yeah, man. Another moment is when they're interviewing his mom about, and this would always bum me out too, when they're like, do you think he's gonna make it or whatever? And she just like, no, like, I don't. And she recognizes how hard he works and what he does, like his drive, but she's like, no, man, like, and I love that realism there. But, and also at the same time, like the mother, like when he does make Coven and she's like super proud and she says something, like she doesn't say all of a sudden like, oh yeah, I think he's going to do it. But she tells the camera like, I just hope it works out for him. I hope he gets, what he wants and whatnot.
There are so many interesting family dynamics in the film, and Mark and the rest of the family are surprisingly open. Maybe not at first, but they're surprisingly open about their dynamic, how there was some trauma in the family growing up, and maybe the mom and dad didn't have the best relationship growing up, but how much he loves them now because of how much they're supporting what he does. Like that's one thing you got to respect to these parents for whatever shit they've been through in the past. They're supporting him pursuing his passion, for better or for worse. And I really respected the family for that. There's a moment later on in the film where he finally has his premiere of Coven, and I was fortunate enough. We helped produce a feature film that was only about 80 minutes long. It was a much shorter film. And it wasn't the best made film, but there is something about opening your film to a live audience.
Yeah.
There is literally no experience like that.
Yeah.
And as I was watching the documentary this time, it reminded me of all those feelings I had. People were laughing. We made a comedy and people were laughing at our jokes and all that stuff. And there is euphoric experience. The way you feel is euphoria when these things are happening. And the documentary captures that so well, like how everyone, how great he feels and how he wants this to be the first step in his journey. And, we haven't seen Northwest at this point, he still hasn't finished his film that he started with in the beginning of the documentary. Once again, it just hits me in all the feels. I'm just like, I can totally relate to that, man. We never made another feature after that one. I haven't done a lot of creative things outside. Most of the times I only do things now if people pay me. I haven't done something that somebody hasn't paid me for. I haven't done it in 15 years,
Right.
And I guess that's why I relate to him so well that it's, I guess I should take that back. I have done the podcast, which nobody pays me for that. So, but I'm not the most artsy or creative person, but I have a little bit of that. And so even if you have just a little bit, you can totally relate to that experience of, God, there's something pure about that experience and going on along that journey to get to that point. And it hit me hard. It did. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It hit me hard.
Man, that reminds me, we didn't even talk about Uncle Bill yet.
Uncle Bill, holy cow.
Uncle Bill's just
Dude,
another
what a character.
Hilarious character. And
You couldn't have written a better character than that guy.
And oh my God. You just got to see the movie, people. Otherwise, I'm just going to try to quote everything.
I know,
but
right?
I just love how I don't believe in nothing you're doing. And he's just like, when they're trying to do that ADR of it's all right, it's okay, there's something to live for, Jesus told me so. And he can't get it right. And I love when they show up and he's like, well, I haven't eaten yet. And he's like, Mike, can we get the man a snack, please? And they give
Mike becomes the PA.
And he's just like, do you have anything to drink with this? And he's just like, oh, it's Surge. It's a brand new soda from Coca-Cola. I just love that. They get him out there. He's just not about it. Why is it every time I give you storyboards, they end up underneath your shoes or something? But when he's out there and they're doing 40 takes, I believe we can do this. And when he just decides, he's like, this is for the birds. I'm done. That's enough. And that's just one of many moments with this man.
Uncle Bill, man. What a character.
And I like, again, the way the editing and the film is crafted, because who knows, there's probably so much other footage and everything they've got.
Imagine.
But the way they crafted the story of the documentary and the movie is because you get these weird dynamics where, Bill is going to give him some money and they're at the bank and he's not about it, but he's like, I guess I'll help you. And I love when he's showing him the girls, you're executive producer, look at this girl who's going to be in your movie. And he's like, oh, that's nice. Old man. And
it's funny because you kind of feel like they're talking him into this. They're manipulating him. At the same time, Bill doesn't seem like the guy who can be talked into anything, it's such an interesting, it feels very real. I'm sure many of us have family members who we feel, have a similar relationship.
Even his dad, who's the brother, is the only person that could ever talk him into anything would probably be Mark. And he talks about too, at one point, he's like, Bill used to be a scholar. We always relied on him. He was the smartest one in the family and all that, but he's just very old man.
Yes.
And, you get these weird bumps with them, but I love how you see that familial love, when it's the Thanksgiving part.
Right.
And Uncle Bill's staying with them, and he has to, and you see just what they have to do, or
that scene hit
Mark
hard, man.
has to give him a bath and shit, and take care of him, and he's just there and doing it and giving peppermint schnapps with a little bit of Sprite. That's got good taste. When Joan comes and she's like, "Did you just leave him in there?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, he's freezing, right? I hope he doesn't pass out. And he's like, "Well, it's strictly monitored." So funny.
And who's looking out for him right now?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had to take care of any older family members, but it's happened a couple of times in the last couple of years. Father-in-law, my grandpa-in-law, and man, that kind of stuff just hits totally different after you've had to take care of some of your family members.
Yeah.
And my respect level, I told you a couple of times it feels like Mark's trying to manipulate people to help to get to his end goal. At the same time, you don't take care of anybody unless you actually care about them the way that he did. Like he's bathing this person, you know? And so like, once again, I got all the feels, the emotion. I'm trying not to make it too much about me, but like I related so many times rewatching this film. And that was one of them. I was like, oh dude, he's trying to take care of his uncle. You know, it's something you got to do with sometimes family, you know?
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, and I think it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. You said the manipulation thing a couple times. Like, what are some other points?
The bank account, like when he's trying to get him the $3,000 out of him, you know, to start the movie. The other one was his mom, when he's trying to get his mom to go out and shoot. I have so many things to do. He's like, Mom, come out. I need your help. Shoot this for me. Yeah. Like, I feel like he's passionate. So like, I don't think he's trying to be in a negative or is like negatively affect the situation, but he is trying to get his way kind of thing. That's the way I feel.
I mean, I guess I don't feel he's trying to manipulate them, because to me that kind of implies that he's saying some other shit that might not be true to get them to do. Like he's asking them outright, like,
that's
Mom,
a fair point. That's fair. He's being very honest.
Yeah, the extras fell through. Please, I need your help. We have to do this today. And even with Uncle Bill, like the one point that I feel is kind of manipulative is when he's like showing them the headshots of the action. Like that's it, right?
Yeah,
but
here's a pretty girl.
The rest of it is pretty straightforward. And I like how even when they're at the bank, they're making it very clear, like only you, Bill, like you're the only one who has access to the account. So it's all good.
That's a really good point. It doesn't feel like he's ever lying to anybody.
Yeah.
Like he's very clear that my goal is to get this film made. That's a very fair point and definitely needs to be acknowledged for sure.
Yeah. Man, and I like all his conversations with Bill too. And I feel like Bill is almost like a grounding force for him, because he's got some friends that are just down for the cause and all that, but are also kind of wild because they're all, and they talk about it, they're all into like drinking and doing drugs and like going to the cemetery and cracking beers. And that's just what they do. And I love when they're talking about his friend Ken Keene and how he was a bad influence and all that and would get them to do this stuff. And he says like, no, you know, everyone used to say that and they'd blame me. And the next shot is them literally picking him up from jail. Like, that's so good.
Once again, great editing.
Yeah. And for Thanksgiving, like he's there, he's part of the family, like all of them. And you got to appreciate that he has like these close group. And I even like, it's as silly as it is, it's also kind of endearing in the way Mike explains, you know, like I just used to like to party and have a good time and like drink, and like sometimes people weren't down, but then Mark would come along and he was always down, and we'd get a fifth of vodka and just drink a bottle of vodka together, and he was always there for me. So now I'm always there for him. And we got to remember, they're like kind of Midwest or country, whatever, like
it's snowing all
Milwaukee,
the time,
Wisconsin. Like it's not like what I grew up in.
Yeah, it's not you're not 20 minutes from downtown.
Yeah. So that's what they have and like what they do. And I can vibe with that. And I just love that, you know, this whole thing where ultimately when I was alone, Mark was there for me. So I'm always going to be there for him to help him make his movies and shit.
There's another scene I loved, the Super Bowl scene where Mark gets a little drunk.
Yeah.
And it just, that one hit a little, first of all, I love football and I've been fortunate to see football in a couple different parts of the country and stuff. And so I totally relate to how important that is. That is an important aspect when your team is in the Super Bowl. And he gets real and he loses it a little bit and his family calls him out a little bit on it, but tries not to say too much about it. But it just feels very raw and real. And once again, I know this is going to sound strange, but my respect level goes up a bit because Mark wasn't afraid to share some of his like real life emotions. And I know we do things that may not necessarily represent ourselves when we're altered like that after having a few beers or having some alcohol and stuff. Yet he wasn't afraid to do that. And I'm sure at any point he could have vetoed this and said, don't include this in the film. But he did. Right. And it adds so much depth to his character that like he's a real person. He struggles with real things, you know, and sometimes he doesn't treat people the best way, you know, and yet they still love each other despite that. That scene hit really hard.
Well, that was another moment where Mike was like, yeah, I won $200. And he's like, Mark immediately, and it goes back to the Thanksgiving scene of why he didn't want to tell him. When he's like, okay, what are you going to do with that 200? Well, I gave 100 to my dad. I have 60 at home. So I got 20 right now. So I guess we can use it. Like, what do you want to do with $20? And he's like, sounds like we could get 4 pitchers at Jim Mitchell's. And I like that. And I like that Mike is just like, no, I don't really want to spend it on beer. And you see that like difference right there where you almost get the idea that Mike would be like, yeah, sure, let's go.
Well, Mike
But
admits
really
he's a
it's
recovering
just-
alcoholic.
Right.
You know, but he's found
Yeah.
gambling now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But that Mark wants to do that to me. Oh, let's go to the bar. And even when his mom is like, I'm not going to drive you. Like, you've had enough. You're good. But in
real.
this whole scene and what you're talking about, it's like what he gets kind of upset about. And again, like you said, the rawness is so good because he's saying what? Like, oh, be a factory worker. Like, yeah, okay, you want me to do that? Like, yeah, go.
Yeah,
like,
win-win for the factory workers.
Yeah,
all
like-
this crap.
and kind of looking down on
Looking
it.
down on factories.
Yeah,
right?
but it's also his insecurity of like, I want something more for myself. I don't want to do that. And I'll be damned if someone's going to push me into thinking.
Absolutely.
And I'll be honest, I get those same kind of feelings. I don't look down on anybody, but I get those same kind of feelings of like, no, I don't want to work at Total Wine putting fucking bottles on the shelves. Like, does that job sound pretty damn good right about now? Yeah.
Sure.
But ultimately, like,
It's not the end goal.
I'm trying to keep the faith that like, all right, maybe that didn't work out for a reason because I don't want to step backwards. And this dude is the same way. And he already works at this fucking cemetery where he's like vacuuming and has to drive around because people get locked.
And deliver papers at 5 a.m. and the
Yeah,
whole thing. You know, I mean,
yeah.
it's like, that's where I think this film is so relatable. Even if you've never wanted to do something creative in your life, I think you can still relate to like wanting to pursue something that is of interest to you. And if you've ever had that desire to pursue anything in your life, I think you can relate to this, where there's other things there's other things you see as like the worst things in the world.
Yeah.
And to Mark, working in a factory is just not on his radar. That seems like torture to him, you know? And I think a lot of us can relate to that because there are some jobs where we just don't want to do them, you know? Even, I think about the custodians at the school I work at. I'm a high school teacher. Like, they make a good living. They make almost as much as I do, custodians, but it's not the type of work is not something that appeals to me.
Yeah.
You know? But other people who who haven't had a lot of opportunities, that could be the thing for them that they get to support their family with. You know, like we all relate in different ways. And that's what I think this film does so well. So
Yeah.
you can totally relate in that sense.
It's funny too, like some of the stuff he will talk about in terms of, I don't know, I guess justifying where he's at and
Sure.
the way things go, the way they go when he talks about, you know, like as a Christian or whatever, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you should care about other people and
Yeah.
should I not?
Nobody should be rich because
Yeah, and I shouldn't be involved in myself. But you know what? I see both sides of it. I see that view and also the Satanist
I want
view
the
of
big
like
house.
the pursuit of personal endeavors
Yes.
or whatever he says. Like why should I feel bad? Like he's already thinking ahead. Like why should I feel bad about being successful when others are not?
For real.
And it's like people will talk about how that's a mindset you have to have, right? Like if you want to be successful, you already got to act and treat yourself and see yourself in that role.
Different mindset.
And he does that. But at the same time, it's like, man, you don't even like know yet. Like you're not even there. You're talking about shit you don't even know about.
You've never been on that plane.
Yeah.
Or that level, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
So.
You know, and well, one of the funniest parts is when he's talking about how they're going to make Coven and what it is. And when he's like, you know, we got to, this is the clip I put on Instagram. And when he's like, man, you know what I did last night? I got drunk and I was calling Morocco trying to get to the Tangiers at Casablanca. He's like, that's ridiculous, man. He's like, is that what you want to do with your life? But that's what happens.
All I was thinking was like,
but that's what happens.
you know, they shot that on a soundstage in LA, right? Like, I mean, that's all I was thinking during that scene. But yes, dude,
Is that what you want to do with your life? Get drunk and call Morocco at 2 a.m? But that's what happens, man. That's why we got to get this sucker done. But anyway, he's like goes off.
I got to tell you, there are so many documentaries I love. And the documentaries that do this so effectively is they get these moments that are so intimate that, you know, that are just so raw and so real. And I think that's why this isn't the behind the scenes on Coven the DVD, you know? Like this could have easily fallen into a BTS thing, but this is so much more and transcends that because they just got so much raw and realness out of this Mark and the people are surrounding him.
Yeah. Yeah, just about the life and everything. And it's interesting seeing the interviews with his brothers too and how they're all just like not really about
They're not about it, yeah.
Like, and when his younger brother even goes as far as to say, he's like, you know, I always kind of thought maybe he'd grow up to be a serial killer or something.
Dude,
That part's like pretty sad. Like,
that's
damn,
fucked up, man.
that's rough. because he's doing all this violent stuff. I don't understand who it's for and who would watch this kind of thing.
I don't know if this is a product of living in SoCal or not, but I know that like, you know, you're not crazy if you want to pursue something creative in our area. And I think a lot of people find satisfaction in rightfully so. Like they just want to find a way to support their family and have a family and all those kind of things. And as I've gotten older, I'm like, man, I really respect that a lot. That people will not necessarily pursue whatever their dream might be, even if they have a dream to support. Like they want to have a family. That's an important part. I want to be able to live and all those kind of things. And I think that's what makes this film so interesting is that the creative aspect of it, you have to look at all these things you have to sacrifice. This guy's got 3 kids, he's got child support, he's got alimony, he's got all these things going on. And at the end of the day, he's still trying to find a way to pursue his dream. Like if you can't relate to that, I don't know, man, it just hits me in the head.
Yeah, man. I started this thought earlier, but didn't finish. It's just all the layers of this movie of being like really hilarious, but at the same time, very introspective. Dude. Sad, but also inspiring because it could have easily gone the way of like you could make fun of them almost like, oh, these are goofy ass people. What the fuck is this?
Guy's neglecting his family. All this stupid shit.
And you can make fun of it or look down on it, like potentially, but it's crafted in such a way that like it takes you on the ride and it's funny and like you, I think you said it perfectly. Like even if you're not going after a creative endeavor, there's something that's relatable to, I think, anybody that's like trying to pursue any kind of goal. You know what I mean? And what you're going to go through to get to that. And even though like ultimately he doesn't fail because he gets Coven done, but it's not like this amazing product. Like it doesn't blow up to any kind of, it's not like now we're seeing him in like Variety, you know what I mean?
Least, not that I'm aware of. I don't think he sold 3,000. Maybe he did sell 3,000 copies, but that was like, remember the goal was, I make $45,000 so I can fund Northwest.
Yeah.
So
and yeah, man. It just hits all these points like expertly, which I think is really hard to do. And I love the way it ends. This last scene with him and Bill. And even the first time I see it, and now every time I see it, and I think this speaks like so much on just who he is and what he's about, and you know, going after these things when he's talking to Bill and they're out on the porch, and he says, you know, we can film whatever. He's like, he's like, is that what you want to do? The last hoorah, the last thing you do is just being here. Is like, that's when you want to go out. And he's just like, be remembered for whatever. And he says, he's like, oh, you want to sit outside the trailer? Like, all right, well, we'll film you sitting outside the trailer, but we're not going to live sitting outside a trailer. Like that line just always gets me. Like, again, one of those things that you couldn't even like,
you can't script.
Write. Like who would write that? And like, the way he thinks, I just love that. Like, we'll film you sitting outside a trailer, but we're not going to live sitting out here. And just that final shot of Bill, like on the porch and saying, like, just randomly reciting one of what I assume is like one of his poems or songs that he was talking about earlier. Yeah. And that's what an interesting moment.
Oh, right.
When they're just like, oh, you write poetry and stuff. And he's like, yeah. He's like, oh, what do you write about? And he's just like, this is what happened to me. And he's saying this like love story. And that is like, has so much depth and like mystery to it. It's like, and you almost forget, it's like, oh, we think he's just kind of this funny old, like nearly senile old man. But this dude's had a life and has gone through
What was
shit.
he like in his prime, man?
Yeah. And also like, that shows that he has a streak of creativity in him as well.
There's a reason.
He's like writing
it
shit.
almost gives you some like, okay, there's a reason he's giving Mark this money, right?
Yeah.
Like he gets it.
Dude, like it's so amazing. And that's almost a part that feels like it's going to be glossed over a little bit. Like it just kind of
definitely the part I don't remember as much as some of the other spots for sure.
But it's so interesting, that depth and how it ties in with the end where he randomly starts like reciting stuff. And then it just cuts to the credits and you see that like I think months later or less than a year later, he passed away.
He was gone within a year.
And then left him money, left him $50,000 to finish it. So even though it seems like he's kind of silly and off his rockers, he knew enough to do that.
Yeah.
Like, man.
I think another relatable thing that, you know, man, how do I put this? I can relate to this, that regardless of some of these outwardly appearances, we all have some depth to us, you know, and definitely Uncle Bill definitely did, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's crazy. It's funny too. Whenever I watch this movie with people that I never like, I remember showing it to my parents, showing it to girlfriends and stuff. And everyone at the end is like, did he make the movie? did he do it? And it's always like, no, I don't think so.
And I've come to be more understanding of that, but there are a certain group. In fact, there's a big majority of people who watch movies who enjoy a movie for its full vision. It comes full circle and there's a definitive answer at the end.
Yeah.
People like you and I, we enjoy like the fact that there's these unanswered mysteries to the film bring us back and we get to watch it again. And I love watching films and television shows, especially the best ones, over and over again. I love peeling a piece of the onion and getting a little bit more out of it. And this film definitely did that, where you mentioned you watch it once a year. I may add it to my list of once a year, man. It's like that inspiring. Like I had that kind of experience with it.
Yeah. It's a movie I needed to watch right now for sure.
Dude.
Well, it's funny because now I think like in my situation, because I always used to think like, man, he never made the movie though, and they left him the money. Like why? But now I'm like, you know what? That movie or that money probably just covered all his debts and shit. Because you got to remember he was dealing with like child support.
In real life, maybe it paid for his kids.
Yeah, the baby mama was like gonna move to a different state potentially.
Brutal.
And he talks about like, oh, I owe my dad this and all of the banks and all this stuff.
$30,000 or some ridiculous amount.
Like that probably literally just covered that, so he could survive. But at least because of this movie, he's had appearances in different films. He has a lot of interviews. He was in like Cabin Fever 2 shows. Him and Mike have been in like music videos. Yep. I think they were in like American Family Family Guy at some point. And you can still see some interviews with him. I got to see if there's anything like newer recently, but he's done a couple little movies and stuff since, or at least maybe not made them, but has been an actor and stuff. And Mike Shank passed away like just a year or two ago.
Oh, what happened?
Yeah, like fairly recently. I'm not sure.
Oh, brutal!
How or what?
He's such a memorable character. I mean, it's I wouldn't be surprised if maybe his health wasn't the best or things like that. Just but dang.
Yeah, hold on. Now I got Mike Shank, who did the music for it too. Yeah, October 13th, 2022.
Oh man, just recent, just almost a year ago, a little over a year ago. The interesting part about that is that it doesn't matter to the way that the film makes you feel. That's I think is pretty interesting to it. Yet it is important because we care so much about these characters. Like we want to know, oh man, what happened to him?
Yeah. Yeah. Cancer.
Oh, dude.
He was 53 years old.
Oh my gosh. Brutal.
Yeah. 53.
That shit hits hard. I just lost my father-in-law to cancer at 61. So
yeah. Being crazy, man.
Dude, brutal.
He'd been clean and sober for 27 years.
So he did get, he talked about his sobriety and unfortunately, in the film, he replaces some of his sobriety with gambling, but I respect that.
That's right. He has that great talk about it. It's like the thing with drugs and alcohol is when you do it, you always lose. But when you gamble, sometimes you lose. Yeah. Like you have a chance at winning.
As a poker player, I could totally relate to that, by the way, sometimes. So.
But when they're like editing the film, right? And man, and he just like, he's a friend that like, I think we all hope and wish we had. Like, dude, just always there down for him. Like, always fucking there, like doing always all this down, man. I love when he's telling him to like put the flyers up and he just walks away and he's like, wait, Mike. He's like, you didn't take the flyers. I was literally laughing. He's like, yeah, that's why I came back to get from you.
Poor Mike has fried his brain a little bit. But
well, it's crazy when he tells that story too about like all the, it was acid with like PCP and a little dab that he didn't know about. And like I died for a little bit and next thing I know, they smell bath salts or whatever. And when he's telling that story and it's like, oh, that like must be the point right there. Shit. Like literally almost died. And he's like, yeah, I got a lot of stories like that. So I'll keep you awake with that.
Too good. What a film.
Great movie. Just, great people. I hope that everyone involved is doing well. I truly do. It's crazy that we can talk about this movie and it's like, man, we're talking about some like real ass people right now. Like
they're real people.
Yeah. I wonder what happened with his kids. Like, I wonder, like, what are they all doing? It'd be interesting if the filmmakers went back and like not even did a feature film, but just went back, or even Vice right now. I'm surprised no one's done this, or maybe people have tried and they just don't want, I don't know, but gone back and it's like, where are they all at now?
Yeah.
Like
we get all these "where are they now" things on YouTube. Why isn't this one of them? Because this once again this hit theaters. Like this made an impact. So
yeah, man. All right, dude. Well, I guess of the Wild Turkey 12 and the Kentucky Spirit Stearns pick, What do you think?
I'm gonna go with the Kentucky Spirits. I didn't mind the 12. I think the 12 is actually good. Wish the price point was a little lower. I know that's shitty to say. I apologize for being so kind of that's not the easiest. That's kind of an easy, low hanging fruit thing to say, but it just the price point affects me a little bit because the Kentucky Stearns is like damn good, dude.
Yeah,
damn good.
Yeah. I've got a couple other Kentucky Spirits, so I got to compare them all because they're all from different.
Stearns is the name of it.
Yeah.
3 podcasts, folks. 3. Yeah. Okay, this is number 3.
All right, man. Well, thanks again for doing this with me, and that's a wrap.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Drinks and a Movie podcast. You can now find us on Instagram at Drinks and a Movie Pod, where we'll be posting photos from all the various films that we discuss. You can also email us at drinksandamoviepod@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and thank you for listening.